It's time to find out if the student can truly surpass the master. Find out what's going on as I hereby invite everyone to join me on my adventures through Marvel Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So we got a new Hawkeye to talk about this season, and that new Hawkeye happens to be Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop grew up being the youngest daughter in a rich Manhattanite family. Although her father was an emotionally distant publishing magnate, she admired him and tried to gain his attention and approval during her summer breaks from boarding school. Sadly, even from an early age, she was frequently left alone and thus became determined to rely only on herself, and this made her develop a very independent, blunt, and stubborn personality. Kate Bishop witnessed her father beating up on another person late one night in his study when she was very young, and after this she wanted to reject her family's wealth and embrace a heroic life. She first encountered the Young Avengers while they were attempting to save others, and unfortunately those Young Avengers started a fire instead, and it was Kate that had to save them. After this, she tracked them down and confronted them, telling them how sloppy they were, and invited herself on as a member and their newest team leader. Kate Bishop is deeply inspired by her idol, Hawkeye. She was inspired by him to take up a stand for all those she deeply loved or cared about. When she thought that Hawkeye had passed away, she took up the mantle of Hawkeye herself. When she found out that her idol Hawkeye was the vigilante Ronin, she was able to understand that his merciless killings of criminals were due to all the pain that he felt after losing his whole family to the snap. While many tried to paint him as only a villain and a killer, her opinion on her idol never changed. Kate Bishop is an extremely confident, brave, and smart individual who knows that it takes a lot of sacrifice to really help people. She has a great sense of justice, cleverness, and survival instincts to help those that are in need. She has a tendency to see things others do not due to her high intelligence. Often she is also able to recognize and see the good in others. She is a loyal friend who cares about her family a lot and always stands by both of them. Kate Bishop has no superpowers, just a recurve bow and a quiver that includes conventional arrows as well as trick arrows, like an arrow that contains a vial of highly corrosive acid, which is released on impact, or an arrow that functions as a grappling hook with a cable that remains attached to the bow to pull something back, or an arrow that possesses pim particles with the ability to grow whenever makes contact with the tip. Kate Bishop is inspired by her idol Hawkeye. She embraces a heroic path with just a bow, a quiver, and arrows. This is represented in Marvel Snap, as when she comes onto the field, she'll pick 2 random arrows out of her quiver that she can use to help you out or fire at your enemies. In Marvel Snap, what she is a 2-cost 3 power card with the description of on reveal add 2 different arrows to your hand. Now, it has been confirmed that these 2 arrows will be completely different arrows. You'll never get the same arrow twice. So let's talk about the arrows really quickly, and then we'll move on to my star rating on her. The 4 arrows are as follows: an acid arrow, a 1-cost -2 power that on reveal switches side. A grapple arrow, which is a 1 power 3 that has the on reveal ability that when you play this, your next card moves to this location. The basic arrow, which is a 1/1 that has on reveal, if you play a card here, Next turn, you will get +3 power to this card's location. And finally, the pin arrow, which is a 1/1 with ongoing. If your side is completely full, this location will get an additional +3 power. Alright, so let me give you my star rating on Kate Bishop, and then we'll talk about her a little bit. So my star rating on Kate Bishop is 4. She is almost a 5. She is one of the most ridiculous cards I've seen in quite some time. This is a card that I would get if I didn't go free to play. I'm not even kidding. First of all, we got to talk about her 4 arrows, and that's where this starts about. She is basically carrying a Ant-Man in her hand, in her quiver, I should say. She's actually carrying the Hawkeye himself in her quiver. She's carrying a better version of a Green Goblin. And she's carrying Ghost Spider but backwards. Look at those cards. You've got an Ant-Man, you've got a Hawkeye, you've got a Ghost Spider, and you've got a better version of Green Goblin. This is such a better version of Green Goblin that theoretically, her acid arrow should basically be like a 1-0 or maybe a 1-1 at best that clogged your opponent's side. That's such a boon to your Green Goblin. And if you're getting 2 out of the 4 each time, there's a good chance that you're getting the acid arrow, and that alone just is ridiculous. The card that this comes closest to is Nika Momoro, because of the fact that when you play her down, she'll get you a random card. This is actually kind of very close to how Snow Guard works, where the cards are noted, but they can also be random. The only nice thing about it is the fact that there A is only 4 arrows, and B, you get 2 out of the 4. I wouldn't be shocked if somewhere down the road she gets 1 arrow, or I wouldn't be shocked if somehow they added a 5th or 6th arrow. That might be a little worse, but seems like a lot more work to add a 5th or 6th arrow. I definitely can see the acid arrow coming down, that's for sure. She basically is a mini Jeff. With the grappling hook on herself, you can get into a lot of weird locations, like you can get into Death's Domain, or you can get into Bar with No Name. The way you would kind of look at her is kind of like a Sentinel, because she's the same power and same energy as a Sentinel, and she gets you 2 cards, so it's kind of like a Sentinel. It's actually way better than a Sentinel, because not only does it get you 2 cards instead of 1, it gets you 2 cards that are really good cards. It doesn't quite work with Loki after the Loki switch, because the arrows won't change, but what you can basically do is get the arrows in your hand, and then play Loki, and then just take your opponent's deck, and use the arrows as kind of tech cards, because each one of the arrows is basically its own little tech card. Alright, because of how all the arrows work, Angela is ridiculous with this particular card. The acid arrow works with Angela. The grapple arrow works with Angela. The pin arrow works with Angela. And the basic arrow, or the Hawkeye arrow, works with Angela. All of them work well with Angela. Also, really good for Athena. Because of the fact that these are 1-drops that you don't have to put in your deck, most decks don't play 1-drops at all, or play very few 1-drops at all. This is a good card to help weave in weird turns with Athena. If you're ever short in energy, none of these cards are bad by just playing them for 1 energy. If you're more of a basic person and you haven't gotten that far in the collection, the perfect card for this is Collector. It puts cards in your hand. This is going to go in your Avengers deck that uses anything from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Any of your Agent 13s, any of your Agent Coulsons, any of those cards that you normally would play with. Because it puts 2 cards in your hand, the collector likes it. And also because of that fact, Devil Dinosaur takes a nice fancy to this card. Even on the last turn, even if for some reason you can't play the arrows, if you have Devil Dinosaur down, this is putting 2 cards in your hand. So there's basically not a single point at which this card really fails on what it does, and it's almost at the point of being at the same level of being a Jeff if you really were to look at it. The only reason it doesn't get a 5 is because sometimes the arrows don't really line up the way you want them to. And you have to worry about board space issues. But that is literally the only thing bad about this card. And even that you might look over because, again, you are looking at cards. You are looking at putting a Ant-Man, a Hawkeye, a Ghost Spider, and a better version of Green Goblin in your deck as soon as you put this card in your deck. That is huge. This is almost as good as putting a High Evolutionary in your deck because High Evolutionary usually only gives you maybe like 2, maybe 3 cards that work. Where this is giving you 2 cards that are going to work no matter what, and you don't have to put them in your deck. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.